Thank you, Matt. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Yeah, you had your coffee. Awesome. All right. So, thanks for coming to my talk. I live in KL, so I'm a local. We can say I've been coming to every WordCamp KL last year, the previous years. So this is my second time talking, and this talk I hope is going to be very interesting. At least that's the whole idea. If you actually like what you see here, if you want to find out more, then you can actually come talk to me. Hopefully that you will actually get something useful out of it. So it's called Create Once, Publish Everywhere with WordPress. It says here Cope. My Twitter account is Losovis. My personal blog is leoloso.com, and these slides are available online, slides.com/leoloso/cope-with-wp, and you might actually want to check it out because there are many links that, you cannot copy paste the link from the screen, but you can actually click, so you can actually load it straight on your computer. So we start. So COPE, as I said just now, means create once, publish everywhere, okay? So what is COPE? It is a strategy for reducing the amount of work needed to publish our content into different platforms or mediums. So what are we talking about? Websites. So you have a WordPress site, right? Okay, so then this is one output. And then you also have email. And then you also have an app. These are the three basic ones that you might think of all the time, but then you still have many more, like virtual reality, augmented reality, an Apple Watch, scoreboards, podcast players, home assistants, in-car entertainment systems, and others. So the idea is you have a WordPress site, but it doesn't have to be limited to being just a site. You can actually use it for many other purposes, right? So how does it work? The idea is to establish a single source of truth for content which can be used for all the different mediums. However, a single piece of content doesn't normally work everywhere. So we're talking about HTML, and if you're talking about HTML, you cannot show HTML on an Android or iOS app. Even within HTML, when you send an email, the email doesn't use classes, it uses styles. And then finally, when you have a class like Text Center, it doesn't make sense for something like Alexa, like something that is audio-based. On the center is on the center of the screen. What does it mean on the center of the air, to say something like that? So the solution to this problem is to separate the form and the content. So the presentation and the meaning of the content must be decoupled. Only the meaning is used as a single source of truth, and the presentation can be added on a separate layer. So what we're talking about this is a typical case. You have a tag P with a class align center and the hello world text, which includes presentation, because the text, the align center class means place it on the center, that's presentation. But if you can actually transform this HTML into a simple object, in this case the example is a JSON object, with the properties, type is a paragraph, the content is hello world, and the placement is in the center, then you can actually recreate the HTML, but now you can extract the meaning out of it for whatever medium you need to show it, an app, or an audio base, or augmented reality. So basically this is our objective. If we can actually manage to convert our content from HTML into its set of properties, then we got it. Then we can actually export it to other platforms, other mediums. Why WordPress? Is it because here we are in WordCamp? Yes, it's because of that. But much more than that, WordPress is ideal because first is that it is very versatile. The database model that we have in WordPress was thought for creating an indefinite number of data models through meta properties that you can extend it. It's very powerful as a content management system. Like WordPress is pretty much the best, or one of the best out there. It is very widespread. All of you guys know somebody who uses WordPress, clients, friends, even family members, okay? It's headless, so the idea with being headless is that the data, you can access that through an API. So through WordPress, you have the WordPress REST API, which it already ships in core. But then you have other ones like GraphQL and another one called Pop that I will show you later. And finally, and the most important reason, and what I'm going to show you here, is because it has Gutenberg. And Gutenberg is really the game changer in this case, because it makes it easy to implement the strategy. The reason why is because it's based on blocks, and I will describe what blocks are. So, before talking about Gutenberg, let's talk about what WordPress used to be. So, we have the difference of blocks and blobs. What is a blob? A blob is a single unit of information stored all together in the database. So basically, when you have a chunk of HTML like this, you might actually think about it as a blob of information. And the important key here is that the bits of information, like the content inside the paragraph, the URL and the dimensions of the YouTube video, they are not really accessible. They are lost in this sea of code. So if you actually want to extract that YouTube URL, you actually need to parse the HTML and extract it with a regex, which is pretty inconvenient. So before WordPress 5.0, that's how it was in WordPress. So this is the post editor, the content editor, the tiny MCE, and you have all this HTML content as it is. You press save, all that content is saved on the database as it is. So then WordPress used to be managing blobs. So now let's talk about what is a block. A block conveys its own content and properties as metadata, and it can be customized to its type, paragraph, video, etc. So exactly the same HTML code that I showed you just now, it can be represented through this other structure. It's basically an array of two elements. On one side you have the type paragraph, the content that it has, and then another element which is a type embed, provider YouTube, and the URL of the YouTube video. So because of this, now I can access the URL straight. We can easily use any piece of data on its own and adapt it for the specific medium where it must be displayed. So since version 5.0, now WordPress is 5.2.4, I think, and next one, 5.3, is coming quite soon. But since 5.0, which was like 1 year ago, we have Gutenberg dealing with blocks. So now this is a new content editor, Gutenberg-based content editor. Now, we're talking about Gutenberg blocks, and Gutenberg blocks is not exactly what I showed you just now about block. A block is a concept, okay? Gutenberg is an implementation. So we will actually see which are the differences between this concept and the actual implementation. So the way that Gutenberg represents information is not what I showed you just now as a JSON object, but it's actually through HTML, okay? So it's pretty much what we had in the past. I mean, the reason for that is because it has to be backward compatible, which is awesome. WordPress prides itself of never breaking up whatever you had, okay? This is still the situation with Gutenberg. So they still treat, they deal with blocks, but inside the block, they store HTML. So from this, we can actually make several observations. So this is the HTML code that Gutenberg saves on the database. You can see it has a few HTML comments there, which are for Gutenberg. So let's make a few observations. First one is the blocks are saved all together in the same database entry. So with the exception of global or reusable blocks, all blocks are saved together in a blog post entry in table WP posts. So why is this important? Because you might actually want to access each item, each element on its own, but actually WordPress still saves everything on one single database entry. So you can't say, just give me the YouTube URL, don't like discard the previous item, which was a paragraph. Just give me the URL of the YouTube. You cannot do that fetching it straight from the database. On the database, you're still saving the information as blobs, kind of sort. But then WordPress provides a function, in this case it's called Parse Blocks, that given a chunk of HTML, it gives you its units. So basically you retrieve the block from the database, and then on the application you can actually still deal with it as blocks. It's a compromise, it's good, it works. Then the other observation that we can make is that the block type or attributes are stored using HTML comments. So you can see it says At the top, WP paragraph, and then it closes the WP paragraph, and then there is another one that says WP core embed / YouTube. So that's how Gutenberg passes metadata. So the problem here is that this is HTML. Once again, we cannot use HTML for an Android app. What happens if we want to display this content on our Android app? Well, it's not a problem because, once again, we had the previous function called Parse Blocks. And given this, we are not dealing with HTML anymore. So even though the internal representation is HTML, you're completely decoupled from HTML. And then you can actually use this for your Android app. It's not a problem at all. The next one that we can see is that the blocks themselves, they contain HTML. And this is more of a problem. So if you see this block, it's that the paragraph block, the content is tag P. Look at this wonderful tango, close tag P, okay? It's not just the actual text, which in this case is look at this wonderful tango. So the tag P is HTML, and that's not useful for other mediums. So the consequence of this is that we need to get rid, we need to get rid of these HTML tags. We can use PHP function strip tags, and we can keep the semantic tags though. This quite possibly. So in this case, for instance, if you use semantic tags like strong or EM, other mediums can actually recognize it and format it on their own, making it suitable for themselves. Alexa, for instance, it's audio-based device. You know, it will be talking to you, and if you have a strong tag in the text, it can actually add emphasis to the text. Alexa can do that. So then you can actually keep whatever is semantic. That's okay. But you have to be careful with what you extract and what you keep. And the fourth observation is that metadata is stored, there is metadata, not all of it, but there is metadata which is stored in HTML and not as an attribute. So in this case, for instance, to extract the caption to extract the video caption from the blog, we have to actually parse the HTML. As you can see, it says thick caption and exquisite tango performance. Okay, and that's HTML. But that same content, an exquisite tango performance, is not among the many attributes stored on the HTML content, which is metadata. So that means that if we actually want to show the caption in our Android app, we will need to parse it, okay, using a regex, a regular expression. This is very annoying because, you know, I mean, we could just got it and that's it, you're done. But now you have to actually be making regular expressions to extract whatever you need. And the regex has to be done on a block-by-block basis. You see what you need. If it is inside HTML, you make a regex to extract it. You have to be careful with that. Okay, so I'm going to show you a lot of code now. It's coded, all of this, what I'm actually talking to you, the strategy. I was talking about the strategy, what we want to achieve. Now we'll be talking a tiny bit about the actual implementation. Now, you don't need to copy-paste from the screen, likely, because I created a plugin with all of this. So the URL is already on the WordPress repository, wordpress.org/plugins/blog metadata. That's the name of this. So if you actually want to play with it, you can already install it. If you want this link, it's on the PPT, on the slides that I showed you just now, the URL slides.com/lelos/cop with WP. Click there, and then you can actually download it. You can actually play with it straight. This is how it looks like. So what we have to do to actually make the implementation, I will go a tiny bit quick with this because, to be honest, once you have the plugin, it's done. You don't need to worry about how it works. But I will still show you how it was implemented, okay? So the first thing that we had to do is to simplify the structure of the JSON object returned by the WordPress function because it's not directly useful or usable. Then you had to extract the pieces of metadata from each block and transform them into medium agnostic format. And finally, we had to make this data available through some API, the REST, GraphQL, or POP that I'm going to show in a tiny bit of time. So to simplify the data, we have to actually pay attention that the structure from Gutenberg itself is not directly useful because it has global blocks and it has multiple levels from nested and group blocks that we will need to retrieve once again from the database to actually have available and all of that. So this is how it looks like. You can actually check it out later. It's just code. So then we must fetch the data from all of these missing elements and add them once again to our own object. This is the function that will do it. And the objective here is to get everything that we need, put it on one single place and on a single level so that we can actually iterate through all of the blocks. Once we have that, we can actually see this data through a REST endpoint. So I created a REST endpoint here on my plugin. So if you download the plugin, you have this REST point already available that you can actually click. You can actually click on the endpoint. So I will show you first. This is the blog post that I have. Whoop, it has to load. Yes, there it goes. So I just created a demo blog post with plenty of blocks, a video, image gallery, audio, pretty much like a quote, anything you might actually ever have, a table, a button, images, a tweet embed, okay? So we have a lot of stuff. How can we use this stuff in our app? So first, in this REST endpoint, this is the actual data behind Gutenberg. So you can see here we are dealing with HTML. It has block name, paragraph, inner HTML. Can you actually see? No, right? So it has, this is the block, paragraph, then the attributes, it has nothing, inner HTML, inner content, then the image. You can see here, these are the attributes from Gutenberg, okay? So this is the raw Gutenberg data from where we can actually extract all of our metadata. Once we have this raw Gutenberg data, the next step is to actually extract it into being medium agnostic, because Gutenberg gives you HTML and we cannot deal with HTML straight. So as I mentioned before, we need to strip all the non-semantic HTML tags, and we can decide on a block-by-block basis how and what we're going to extract. So for instance, for a paragraph block, we can extract the text alignment property. For the YouTube embed block, we can extract the video URL property. And to extract them, we will need to have a regular expression. Now, not all of the blocks can actually, they make sense in this strategy, because they may make sense for a screen-based device, like web, but maybe not for an audio-based device, okay? Core columns. What does it mean to have columns when you're dealing with Alexa? Okay, so then this one is like, sorry, I cannot use for this other platform. Core HTML only makes sense for the web, right? I mean, that's what it is, HTML. And table, button, media text, they cannot be easily represented in other formats. So for the time being, we forget about them, okay? And let's deal with the ones that we know that we can deal with. Paragraph, we can have a paragraph of text, an image, a video, heading, a gallery, a list, audio, file, video, code, preformatted, quote, pull quote, verse. So all of these are the ones which are already shipped through core. So when you actually install WordPress, you have all of these blocks already available. And then through plugins, you have many more. So if you guys are actually plugin authors and you want to have your plugin, the data from your plugin, from your own block, extracted as metadata, then you can actually integrate it with this. It's very easy. So to extract the metadata, I created a function called getBlockMetadata. This is the code, no need to show it to you. It's coded already in the plugin. Okay? And once we have the metadata extracted, we need to make it available through an API. So 3 APIs we have. REST API, which is available in WordPress core. Then GraphQL through WP GraphQL, which is an open source project that integrates WordPress with GraphQL. And finally, POP, which is my own implementation. It's very cool, you should check it out. And I'm going to show you an example with each of them. So the first one is REST. So let's check the results. Same blog post that I showed you before, and I'm going to click here in this endpoint, and let me show you first what this is. And here we have exactly, so if you remember, this is the Gutenberg data as it is stored by Gutenberg. Okay, we are dealing with blocks that they have HTML. After extracting from the HTML the metadata, this is what we have. So let's now zoom in a tiny bit. Core paragraph, it has the content and just the content. Then we have the core image, and it has the image with the source. We have here another paragraph, YouTube video, URL, caption. So this is what we want, because now the YouTube URL is already available, it's a property on a JSON object, like just give me the URL, you show it on your app. Okay? And this is the same for everything. Image, this is the source of the image, the heading. The heading is quite interesting because, as you can see, the heading is H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, which is HTML, that's web. So then, to be medium agnostic, I can transform that into extra large, large, medium, small, and extra small, right? Something that makes sense on an agnostic way. Then we have a gallery of images. You have the source of the image, width, height for each of them. A list, instead of having li, is actually an array. Audio, if you have the source here. So we got it, okay? Once you have this data, you can use it for anything you need. So this data is coming straight from your blog post. You're still coding, you're still adding your content in the WordPress admin, like normal, but now that same content you can reuse it for any platform, which is pretty awesome. If I see my cursor, here it goes. We continue. So this is through REST. Next one is GraphQL. So GraphQL, you can also create an endpoint, or like a field in this case, to export the data. Now GraphQL is a tiny bit more tricky because each different block has its own representation. So we saw the paragraph has content like the text, and a YouTube embed has a URL. And that makes it very, not difficult to deal with, but very annoying to deal with. Because each single representation, you need to create its own type to deal with it in GraphQL, and then you have to make a union of types. It will be a huge union, and for all of them you have to deal with all the properties that it has. It's so annoying. So to be honest, I gave up, and I didn't do it. I'm sorry. And I just do a JSON encode. Basically, it just gives you a huge block of code that then in the client you have to decode, whatever. Next. And finally, and this is the one that I'm actually the most eager about because it's my own stuff. So this is an API called POP. It's like GraphQL. I'm going to show you now. This is the implementation. But POP gives you a few more capabilities. So, okay, first one, let's click on this one. Where is my? I cannot click. Oh, here it is. I didn't have the cursor on my screen here. So with POP, you have exactly the same that I showed you just now for REST, okay? But it works in a GraphQL fashion, so you can actually pass the attributes that you need. In this case, the attribute or the field is called block metadata, and I can fetch the block metadata also together with ID, the title of the post, the URL, and then the author, and the author give me also the name. So you have all the, let's see what it is. Here it is. You also have extra information that you can get on that same query. Okay, so you're not just getting the data that you need, but you're getting the many levels of data that you need, not just for the blog post, but also the author of the blog post. Give me already the name of the guy. That's something that you don't have in REST. It's kind of tedious to do it in REST. You might have to do like 2 or 3 or 4 different requests before you actually get all the data. That's the first thing that is pretty cool. Second thing that is even better is that you can actually filter data. This is like GraphQL. So once again, when we're talking about agnostic, like you may not need all the data because, as we said, you have an Apple Watch. You're not going to be reading content on an Apple Watch. It's good maybe just for watching an image, watching a video, that's it. So I just have my app on an Apple Watch. Give me the videos, and only the videos. That's all I want. So then here, you can actually filter and say, block metadata, block name, core embed, YouTube. And then I only get the video information and nothing else. Everything else is stripped out of the content. And another example is all the images from a post. Say, give me from this one post all of the images. Okay? And now you can actually have a gallery that works in your Apple Watch, because otherwise it makes no sense. Okay? You don't want to show content, you only need the image. So this is a combination of two things. One is the power of Gutenberg to manage content in a structured way that it gives it to you by default, because it's dealing with blocks. And the second one is a very powerful API that can actually extract only those blocks of information that you need, dismiss the rest, okay? The combination of these two things, you can actually do crazy, crazy things for email, app, AR in the future, VR in the future. Now you have the tools, you can do it if you want. This is available on its own repo. If you actually check it out on the slides, the link is here. So after this talk, I'm pretty much finishing. But after this talk, what we have is, we started with HTML code coming from Gutenberg. You go to the admin, you say post, add new, you write a lot of bunch of stuff, you add blocks, another block, another block. This is what you have in the database. This is the result from Gutenberg. And from what I've gone through, we have converted this HTML block of code into something more manageable, into a JSON structure that then you can actually extract and use for your apps, whichever that app is. We got it, okay? So, conclusion, we are pretty much finishing. The COPE, which means create once, publish everywhere strategy, helps create several applications which must run on different platforms or mediums: web, email, apps, home assistants, virtual reality, augmented reality. It aims to create a single source of truth for our content by separating form from presentation. The single source of truth is Gutenberg. Gutenberg is good not just for the web, now it's good for everything. The next step is to extract the data for every other medium. Because it is block-based, Gutenberg makes all the metadata inside the post readily accessible through APIs. Implementing create once, publish everywhere for WordPress is not optimal. We saw we had to do some regular expressions, but it is pretty straightforward. It works pretty well. There's a plugin that I have coded. You can download, you can use it, you can install it, it works. So basically, now you can actually export your data to any other app, newsletter, all the stuff that you need. Yay! That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Have a little cap there for you as a memento. Thank you for the talk.
Thank you.
Create once, publish everywhere. I don't know about you guys, but I learned some really handy things. I didn't know about parsing of blocks like that before. Excellent. Now, obviously, it's time for Q&A. So does anybody out there have any questions?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Leonardo, for your presentation. Can you share again the first slide? The first slide.
Which is the first slide?
This key. The second. And this one, yeah. So that means if you use your plugin, block metadata, I can publish my WordPress website into this all platform.
Yes and no. The thing is this: if you want to use all of these platforms right now, you have the problem that you need to make sense of the data from your website. So say that you have a WordPress site right now, and you use Gutenberg to add content. How do you actually manage to output your blog post into, say, I don't know, your app, your iOS or Android app? Right now you can't. So through the plugin, you can convert that data into something agnostic that then you can use on your app. So you still need to code your app. I mean, I'm not coding your app.
Because right now I'm exploring several plugin website. There is an plugin where from the WordPress, I want to convert it into mobile apps, so I can. But it's a subscription. Dia ada yearly punya payment. So.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm not dealing with the app itself. You still have to code it. What I'm giving you is the content. Now you have the content of your website available to your app. That you have it ready through this plugin, but the app itself, you still need to take care of it.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Obviously, it's very cool. I think I have a few questions in terms of the tech side of it. For example, when you say you have the, first of all, you have the data stored in Gutenberg, but then when you extract it, you use a plugin. I mean, you're suggesting using POP, so I assume it's a plugin to extract content. So ultimately, the data is still in Gutenberg, right? So when you extract it out, and every time, whenever I have an app or Apple Watch or whatever, so if I want to use it, I have to call the API all the time. So do you think that is, well, is that what it is, first of all?
Yeah, you need to call an app, and the app, you need to retrieve the data to show it on the app. You use an API for that.
Okay, so parsing, so it has to parse every time.
No, you don't need to parse every time. You can cache it. This is This is a URL. You can have WP super cache, and that is cached.
Yeah. Okay, sure. So is there any way for us to generate the content by ourselves and then ask Gutenberg to extract it instead of the original way that you propose?
Can you repeat? I couldn't hear.
Yeah. So I was saying that. Is there a way for us to generate the data, the medium agnostic data by ourselves, then we let Gutenberg or any other mediums to use that instead? Or do we have to generate it from Gutenberg?
You have to.
Okay.
I mean, because that's how Gutenberg works.
Sure.
And you're not going to re-implement Gutenberg. Gutenberg is pretty cool. Gutenberg is a compromise, because it works with HTML, and the reason for that is that it doesn't break backwards compatibility. You can open your tiny MCE created blog post from 2 years ago in Gutenberg nowadays. So it is what it is. This is a way to work on top of that limitation that satisfies the requirement, which is transform HTML into medium agnostic format.
Probably the last one, which means that everything will be stored on WordPress database.
But that's where we're starting from. My point is, you have a WordPress site, you already have it, okay? Now you can make all of that content that it is kind of hidden, just for, like, it's only available to your website. Now you can release it also for your app. So my starting point is, we already have WordPress. But if you actually wanted to start a new website tomorrow, well, you can actually code just, you don't need to deal with Gutenberg, just deal with plain code all by yourself. It will be much more effort, but you can. It will be more effective. It's just that you're missing out on the plugins from WordPress and all of that. So this is a way to make the most out of the ecosystem.
Yeah, got it. Thanks a lot.
Right?
What is the process time of this?
Oh, yeah, sorry?
What is the process time of this plugin? Response time from WordPress to any other device?
What is the what again, sorry?
Process time for the process.
Processing time.
Yeah.
To extract the data.
Yeah.
Negligible. It's just a few regexes on a very... The good thing about Gutenberg is that it already gives you the chunk of data. So when I'm doing the regex to extract some data, if it is not available, it's on a very small HTML piece of code. It takes no time. It's available. You call the URL, you got it. And you can also cache. Once again, this is a URL. The good thing of what I was showing you just now with the APIs is that you have REST API, you have GraphQL, and you have POP, which is my own stuff. REST is not completely convenient because it's not so easy to query the data that you need. GraphQL, you can do it, but it's very tedious to do, and you cannot cache. What I was replying to that is that you can cache, you cannot do that with GraphQL. With POP, it's a URL, and you can, through the URL, specify what data you need, and it only queries that data. It's as effective as it can ever be.
That's great.
Hi, thanks for the interesting presentation. I have a question. What do you suggest about websites that are using existing page builders such as Visual Composer. You know, there's a lot of short codes inside there, and so on and so forth. So how do you suggest code implementation in such websites?
Forget about them.
So it's not possible.
Straight Gutenberg. Straight Gutenberg.
Okay. Do you have any real-world examples or scenarios where code has been implemented? So
Again, I couldn't hear. Sorry.
do you have any real-world scenarios or implementations of code? Any existing implementations?
Yeah, actually, well, what I'm actually showing you right now, this is already working. You're asking me, do you have your own app? No, I don't have my own app. This is an API. You already have the data, you can actually use it. So this is already working. My particular, okay, through POP, what I do is, POP is actually, my API is actually something more, is wider, it has bigger implications, that you can actually code the application itself for different mediums. So with POP, I have my website and my email newsletters all in one. So my own website is already my own email newsletter, because this same infrastructure that I'm actually showing you, the API is just one application, but the whole thing can actually be done with that mentality. I can show it to you later on. I mean, I cannot show you here. Apps, no, I don't have. Amazon Alexa, I don't use. AR, VR, I haven't done it. But once again, because you have the data, now you can do it. That's the important, the takeaway message.
Thank you very much.
Do we have further questions? Anyone? Nope.
All right?
Okay.
Then that's
I
it,
have
I
a
guess.
question.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On the images that you outputted, I noticed that you didn't get the other image sizes. So you know, like how WordPress creates all my thumbnails and things,
Yeah.
but like the gallery, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that gallery example right there, you just have those top level images, and when you had the gallery, you just had the URL of the source and the width and height. Do you have an example of one implemented with all the thumbnail sizes and different sizes that are generated?
I can show you, I can do it right now, I think. Let me see if I remember. So you have, I'm sorry, I'm doing this. Oh, here is featured image props. Let's just do the title also. Let's see. All right, so this is my API. You can actually select the fields. So here I said, give me the title. Okay, let's also do the ID. Oh, actually, I'll show it to you a tiny bit more interesting. Let's do all of my posts in the database. Also, we can see how much time it actually takes. Okay, I got it already. So these are all my posts in the database. And I say, for each of them, give me the ID, title, URL, and feature image props. If it has a feature image, this one has. Now, this width and height is for the standard size. And through parameters, I can say size, if I'm not wrong. Let's see if this works. The problem of doing live coding demos is that they might or they might not work. Yeah. It did work. Do you see now? Now the size is actually different. So you can actually query the size that you actually need.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Okay, thank you.